Hi, guys. This is Mike from American Ghost Walks, and I got a special treat for you. We're talking about an event coming up in Galena, Illinois, right at the end of March, first week into April. You can spend your April Fool's Day talking about ghosts in a very, very fun area. And I've got with me today the people who are putting on the event, and they are from the Haunted Galena Tour Company. And I'm talking about Mr. Ted Williams and Robin Davis. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, how are you?
We're doing great, Mike. Thanks for having us on. We sure appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so kind of just wanted to start talking about what you guys do at the Haunted Galena Tour Company and how you guys got involved in the ghost world in Galena, Illinois. For the people who maybe haven't been there before, just give us quick history of like a little bit of why you think it's haunted and how you got in there.
You want to handle the why it's haunted part?
No, no. So, Galena is a very, very old town, and it was founded in the 1820s, and was quite a boom town. It was the place in the Midwest where everyone wanted to be, and in the 1850s and 60s, this was the place to be. Even more exciting and appealing than Chicago. It was where everybody who was anybody gathered. And that lasted for only a couple of decades. And by the turn of the century, Galena kind of became almost a ghost town. Our population of 15,000 went down to the hundreds, and people left town, abandoned the beautiful houses and mansions that were all over the city. It had been very wealthy. And our 6 block Main Street shopping district only had a handful of stores still open. So none of our history or our buildings kind of got torn down. And a lot of very interesting events happened in this town when it was a boom town, and it was way the edge of the West for the longest time as people expanded from the East. So wasn't until the 1960s or 70s that people started coming back and renovating the old houses and the buildings and visiting Galena, and it's become it's one of the largest intact historic districts in the United States. Um, it's also one of the most active spots for ghostly hauntings. And, and maybe Ted can tell you a little bit about why we think that is. But Galena's just a place where you come and you feel like you are back there, back in the 1850s, because the buildings are all here and it's really been quite unchanged.
It's really true. In 1855, Galena was not only the largest city in Illinois, it was the wealthiest. And so we had a great deal of early success, but then things changed on a number of fronts, including transportation modes and lead and depressions. And before you know it, like Robin said, turn of the century, we aren't looking so good anymore. But all of the infrastructure that was built back in the 1820s through the 1870s is all pretty much still here and intact. And I'd love to tell you that it was because we had a really, really smart city council that looked ahead and saw the value of historic properties. But frankly, there just wasn't enough people here to tear it down or reason to. So that makes Galena really unique. And as you walk through the streets, you can sense, the history. It's literally like walking back into a historical place, which makes it exciting. Now, as far as the hauntings go, there are absolutely hauntings here and a number of them. But it's important to remember, Galena gets about 1.5 million visitors every year. And so what happens is that these hauntings tend to get spotted over and over and over again and reported. So are we haunted? Yes. Are we more haunted than other places in the U.S.? I would argue maybe a little bit, but we get reported a lot more because we have so much traffic through here that it does get reported. And that makes it exciting because in a way that continued sighting over and over again at these specific spots is a way of demonstrating that all of this stuff isn't just made up. It's really happening. And you can experience it if you come here.
Right. Well, and so I'm based in Madison, Wisconsin,
Mhm.
and we definitely have an affinity towards the miners that came through Galena and the Cornish and Welsh that came through, because that's where we got the nickname of the Wisconsin Badgers.
That's
Yep,
right.
yep.
Yeah, and so okay, so for you non-Wisconsiners out there, so the miners that came through with the big lead rush of the 1840s, and I think they were getting between 10 and 20,000 people coming through into Wisconsin, and then into Galena during the lead rush during this time period per year, between 10 and 20,000 new people coming through just for the mining. They were calling these guys badgers because they couldn't afford to make actual homes. So what they did was they would make these little hovels inside the sides of hills, and in the driftless area we have, it's because it wasn't covered by the glacier. It's a little bit different kind of territory, and they would make these hovels, and they would dig into the sides of these hills, and that's where they would stay. And so even though we don't really have any badgers in Wisconsin, they called them badgers' dens. And that's why they're called the Wisconsin Badgers. And anyway, so I just thought that was a fascinating thing. And since Galena is so much part of that mining history, that means a lot to people in Wisconsin, and we don't even know it half the time. So we always have an affinity for such a beautiful place, and the people that go there. So, all right. So you have this town. It really does look like a recreation of, the mid to late 19th century. So it is like kind of walking through time, and it's a beautiful place. It's hilly. It doesn't look like the farmland that you think it's going to look like when you're driving through it. It looks like a place you want to visit, and obviously over 1 million people want to do that every year. Go ahead, Robin.
It also is really interesting because if you research the history and you go back, we've been really lucky in that there was never a fire or anything that destroyed the old records. So we've got all the old newspapers and records from the 1820s forwards. We have access to everything. And if you look back, people loved living in Galena. Our dog is wanting to be on camera too here.
Winn-Dixie, everybody.
People loved living in Galena, and it just, even back in the 1800s, it was a charming place. The environment was just really charming. The land, the rolling hills. And I really believe that we have so many spirits here because nobody ever wants to leave. Even in death, they don't want to leave. They want to stay here. It's just kind of this idyllic place. And that hasn't really changed. The people who are here still feel that way.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. This, as far as we all run haunted history tours,
Right.
and this isn't the world's most, it's not the world's most normal job. And so when other people say like, oh, I became a teacher, I went to school. I liked my teachers. I thought I'd be a teacher. Or, my dad was a construction worker, and so I got in there. My dad was a plumber, and we kind of went through that. My mom did this and made me want to do this. What got you guys into ghost stories, and then making the plunge into, okay, not only am I going to be someone who loves ghost stories, I'm going to be a professional weirdo who tells ghost stories for a living?
Card carrying.
Right.
For me, it was a couple of things. When I was younger, loved to read, and I had a couple of books from an author called Hans Holzer, which has now become popular again. There's a show on about his files and the medium that he went around with. And as a young kid in your dark room reading those books, it really scared me. They were really well written, really frightening books, and so that kind of got me really interested in it. And I started branching out. I had another book called This Baffling World that was all about like unexplained phenomenon. And so at a young age, I just grasped onto it. I just thought it was really cool, the unexplained and everything else. And I just liked that idea, and I was captivated by it. I mean, I've always been kind of somebody who's interested in solving riddles and problems, So that was really cool because these are all sort of unknowns, and that's pretty potent bait for someone like me. But time goes along, and I always had a kind of a booming radio voice, and everyone would say, "Wow, you should be in radio." And I never got into radio. I did a little bit here and there, but I actually went to England. This was going back probably 25, 30 years ago. And we went to a town called York, England, which is just short of the Scottish border in northern England itself. And I went on a ghost tour there, not really knowing what to expect. I really hadn't been on one before. And this man comes out named Trevor in this unbelievable costume, just all Gothic Victorian black, and he was a Shakespearean actor and had this huge booming voice, and took us around for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I, by the end of that, I was like, I want to do that. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's it. I'm going to somehow find a way to make that happen. And it wasn't really until we got to Galena and started working that became a reality. Friends said, you should start a ghost tour. And actually a friend of mine, Wendy Hyken, had a B&B. It was her idea. And so we did the research. We started the company, and that was the Annie Wiggins Ghost Tour back then. And that was back in 2001, and we've been rolling ever since. So, and she's long since kind of backed out of things, and we've reformed, and now we're the Haunted Galena Tour Company. But we love what we do. I can't imagine a more fun and surprisingly busy and sometimes tasking job than having a ghost tour company and all that goes with it, from the weirdness of the stories and the phenomenon to the day-to-day business operations, and it's fun.
Well, one thing I was going to say is, uh, you're talking about when you go over to England, and
Mhm.
now then you're seeing cities that don't just have. I mean, obviously in the Midwest, the Indian history goes back thousands of years, but we don't
Right.
know a lot of that,
No.
and it wasn't written down, and it's passed on, and so a lot of that's gone, and so of written history, we have, 150, 200 years, maybe some of the French explorers when you want to go 400 years. But
Right.
so we don't have that. And then you go over to these places in England and they're like, oh, this is where the Roman thing was. When was that? Oh, that was, that was 2,100 years ago. And you're going into places, yeah, this building was built in 756. And you're like, holy crap. So what I like about going to a place like Galena is that you're seeing these buildings that you feel like you're walking someplace full of history. I mean, not that these, like a city like Madison or Milwaukee or Chicago doesn't also have that history, but because of the modern
Right.
buildings, the stuff built in the 60s to today, the skyscrapers, you get a different feeling than, even when you're walking through York or Edinburgh, any of those places in the UK that have a couple thousand years of written history and the buildings, you have that, you're already predisposed to feel like you're there, and then the ghost tour piles that on top of it, and then you really feel like you're there. And so I think that's a really good example. You said you went to York, you saw an awesome tour, and you're like, hey, and you're doing something in a similar kind of place where the history just doesn't. It's visually there in addition to you guys transporting the people there on your tour.
Right.
Right.
And so, okay, so Robin, how did you decide to become a weird person as well?
So I always had an interest in ghosts and always felt like there were spirits and ghosts around me, and really want to be a ghost when I'm no longer here. But growing up, I was just always intrigued, reading and movies and everything about ghostly phenomenon. Although I was also scared, very, very scared of ghosts and all of the paranormal. Um, I did go to college at University of Wisconsin in Madison, and my undergrad is in history, and I love history. I love historic preservation. I just love going places and learning about the people who were there before me. And came to Galena and loved Galena so much. And I went on a ghost tour. And I am on this ghost tour, and this guy's doing it, Ted. And I remember thinking, this is the perfect thing for me to do, because all my life I've been intrigued about the spirit world and everything about it. And I love history. And wow, I wish I could have that man's job. I would do that, but I didn't live here. I didn't move here until, I don't know, 5 years later. And then I don't think I met you for another 10 years.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to do that. I wanted to do ghost tours. And so when we met and later started dating, I was just kind of like, yeah, we ought to do this ghost tour thing together. Yeah.
And here we are.
Right. I was
So-
going to say, ghosts, come to Galena, come for the ghosts, stay for the love. Really.
There you go.
Is that,
You say.
that's the thing. Okay, so you guys been into it for a long time. You're doing it together. We've got the Haunted Galena Tour Company running tours there. Now you're giving people the opportunity to go a little bit deeper than just an hour and a half to a couple hours of spending time and going on a ghost walk and going around the town. Now you're giving people the opportunity to spend a whole weekend exploring this, exploring the supernatural side of the world in this place. So what inspired you to say, like, okay, we're going to, because it's a big thing to jump into a paranormal conference. It's not, number one, it's the event planning. It's like a whole new product, and so it's a big deal. And so what made you guys decide to do the plunge? How was, did you have to hold hands and close your eyes, or how'd that go?
No, I had to hold his hand while he closed his eyes. So we are really lucky in Galena. We have a hotel called the DeSoto House Hotel, and it's the oldest hotel that is running in Illinois. Was built in 1855, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And we take our tours through that hotel, and we also have done some theatrical performances for the hotel based on Galena history. And we had gone to a couple of different paracons and had fun with them. And we came home, and I said, Ted, we really should do a Haunted Galena conference so people can experience our town and experience the DeSoto House Hotel. And he's like, no, we couldn't possibly do that.
I can be a little change resistant sometimes.
Yes. But, we talked about it more, and we had met so many neat people at the Paracons, and we wanted them to not only experience Galena, but some of them to be presenters for us, because we wanted the folks that have come on our tour and have experienced Galena but wanted more from us to meet some of the interesting people that we had known. And so that's kind of where it began.
Yeah, it started as a way of reaching out, like you said up front, Mike, a little bit deeper level of the phenomenon here. And we definitely wanted to not make it like an international, we wanted a regional product where people within, say, a 200-mile radius could come and hear about things that then they could go and investigate and explore and learn of things within that bubble. And that's what makes it kind of neat, is that we still focus somewhat on a regional thing. We this year also are having some new dynamic additions, including a folklorist, which should be very interesting, who's going to speak. I'm really excited about our topics list. And anybody who's interested in who's going to be here, you can go on to Haunted Galena Conference or just hauntedgalena.com and click right into it. We have a full list of all the speakers and also the schedule and what those presentations are all going to be about. One of the highlights is going to be a open mic hosted by none other than the host of the show you're listening to. Mike Huberty will be talking to folks, and then that's going to be a real fun event at 8:00 on Friday. So,
yep, that's right. It's gonna chance to tell your own ghost story within limits. Obviously, we only got a couple of hours, so you don't have to be Henry James or whatever the whole time. You can if you can abbreviate, but we want to hear everybody's ghost story, because one of the great things about these conventions is you're in a safe place where you can talk to people about your experience. It's not like at your job where if you tell people that you believe in ghosts or whatever, you might get fired. I mean, not at our jobs, but but right. If you're a nurse or whatever, is but you just, oh, I did I tell you about the ghosts I seen right before you give them the anesthesiologist, you might scare them. So that's the kind of like, oh, did I tell you I see dead people? I can see your future. It looks bad. But that you're not going to scare anybody. This is the kind of place where you can share your experiences in a safe manner. It's fun. It's a safe space for weirdos, and that's one of the things, and that's what we're going to stress definitely at the Ghost Story Open Mic on Friday night. But I wanted to go over some of the other fun guests that maybe some people in our audience or people watching today might have heard of.
And let me just. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. No,
please, you go first.
Okay. I just also wanted to say that one of our goals with this conference, there were like 3 different goals really quickly. One is that we've been to some paracons that are in larger cities where it was really hard. You're in this nice, wonderful, safe space. You're talking with people. You're having a whole bunch of fun. But if you want to go explore, it's sometimes a long, long way to go see some of these sites. And what we wanted to do in Galena is so small and most everything is within walking distance. So we thought it would be really fun to host a conference where people could actually be in their hotel, walk outside and actually walk to some of these haunted sites and stuff and things like that, and experience some of the things we were talking about very, very easily. They wouldn't even have to get in their car and travel. That being said, we also wanted to try to keep things very regional within, like Ted said, maybe 200 or 300 mile radius, and have speakers who lived in those areas or experienced those areas or have researched in those areas, so that people, it was very much a regional conference talking about things in this area. And last but not least, the DeSoto House Hotel is a beautiful hotel, but it's very small. And so our conference, we can only have 120 people at our conference. And so it's quite small. And that intimate setting allows people to get to know one another and allows people to actually be face to face with the speakers and meet the speakers and ask questions. And so we thought for people, especially maybe their first conference, a small conference that is just where everything's very accessible would be really fun, and something maybe a little different.
The one thing too, Mike, you touched on it too, is you go to these conferences and there's such a great deal of camaraderie. The people that go to these, we've made lifelong friends going to these things, and that includes yourself, Wendy, gosh, Scott Marcus, a lot of folks that we really come to know and hang out with, Lisa Van Buskirk. It's been really, really fun getting to know all of these folks that are either in this field doing research and investigation, or have companies like yourself that are doing entertainment and research type based activities. Really neat stuff. And so the neat thing about the conferences Robin touched on, it's really small, and you'll be able to sit down and talk to people like Troy Taylor or Chad Lewis, who, by the way, are both coming to this conference. So it's going to be neat.
Well, and I wanted to bring that up because Chad wasn't there last year, so this is the second Haunted Galena conference, and so Chad is an expert Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa. He kind of the upper Midwest. He has been studying that for 25 years, 30 years. I mean, I remember I'm in a band as well. And we were getting some airplay on Eau Claire radio station. And so I used to listen to that Eau Claire radio station over the air because I'd be like, oh, they play my band and stuff like that. And then Chad had a show on there, The Unexplained with Chad Lewis. And so I first heard of him on the radio. And he was fascinating, 2 decades ago. He's only increased in fascination. And so when I'm looking at the events here, Chad's going to be speaking on, looks like Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so he's going to be speaking on Monsters of the Midwest, from Bigfoot to Vampires. And if vampires are going to be there, he also has a special breakout session where you can build your own vampire protection kit.
Correct.
That's his idea.
We are thrilled. It's actually you get to go in and you spend about an hour and a half, and Chad will take you through constructing a kit with all the necessary things to either repel and or vanquish vampires, including the stake, the garlic, the holy water, the whole bit. And it's actually a really handsome kit with a velvet lining and a box that you can carry with you. And I think it's a prudent thing to probably have with you. Woulda, shoulda, coulda is some pretty sad last words for those who fail to enlist in this. So it's a really fun little adjunct, and that'll be Chad on Friday night, and it's going to be a great chance. I think that he's only allowing like 15 people to this, so it's a pretty small group of folks. What a great opportunity, not just to learn a lot about vampires and vampiric folklore, but you get to hang out with Chad for, an hour and a half. So.
Right. And so he's a font of knowledge, and he's not afraid to, to talk about it too. So he's really wonderful when you ask him questions. But I was going to say, you're going to want to hang out with, though, for the rest of the weekend, you're probably going to want to hang out with somebody who builds one of those kits, because then you're going to be a little safer.
Stay close.
Especially after you hear his presentation on Saturday and you find out where they all are.
Right. And so
That's
when
right.
you know that there is there's a vampire book by George Martin, the Game of Thrones guy, that is about riverboats.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I believe one of the scenes takes place. They talk about Galena. They mentioned it. They mentioned Galena in, is it Blood Fever? The name of it? Oh, I can't quite remember. But it's a George R. R. Martin. I was like, oh my God, he's talking about Galena in here. Sweet.
Yep.
That was pretty sweet when that came out. It was like, ooh.
Yeah. So anyway, as far as vampires go, even the guy from Game of Thrones knows that they're in Galena and that you're going to have to watch out for them.
That's right.
Of course, at 10 o'clock Saturday morning, Scott Marcus, who also works with us at American Ghost Walks in California, and he's a writer for that and is one of our guides for the Lake County Ghost Adventure in northern Illinois. That's a fun 7-hour ghost tour that's talking about being weird all day. And he's going to be talking about mysterious window locations. And so that's a great preview on tours that you can actually probably take with Scott later on, where he can lead you to those window locations himself.
Oh, absolutely. And they will be locations that are in the region. Yeah.
Yeah, these are all going to be, not all of them, but we asked Scott if he could focus on like some of the Illinois, Wisconsin areas, like Kettle Moraine State Park is one of those locations. Centralia, Illinois. So there are some of these. And for those of the listening, a window location is a place where paranormal activity just goes off the chart. It's multiple things. You might have sightings of cryptids, things like Bigfoots or strange animals or Mothman. You have ghostly activity that occurs as well. UFO activity frequently accompanies all this. So it's these really intensive spots, and it's just funny how they all tend to break out in one distinct area at once. And Scott's kind of decided to really focus on these and put some theory to it. We're excited as all can be to hear his presentation, because it's a neat thing, and it's neat that there's some of those right in the area that we can go check out.
Well, and that is something that's you talk about the Kettle Moraine UFO sightings, Bigfoot sightings are there. I grew up right off that. And so there's plenty of ghostly folklore in there. And so the fact, the window, that it's not just one thing that's there. And this to me, this stretched my credulity in the beginning. I was like, okay, well, I could buy ghosts, and maybe I can buy Bigfoot's a monkey walking around, and I can buy UFOs or aliens, but all of them together, come on. And I think that John Tenney has a great quote where he says, what you think is weirder than you think.
There you go.
To me, that just seems like that encompasses it. Like, okay, well, I thought Bigfoot, it's a weird thing or whatever, because we're talking about a cryptid and an undiscovered animal, and is he a giant ape or whatever? But is Bigfoot an interdimensional creature? Is he a ghost of a Neanderthal? What are all the things that it could be? And that's the kind of rabbit holes Or should we say, I don't know, rabbit holes? Are they They're 6 feet deep at the haunted Galena convention, kind of thing. So that's gonna be a fun one. Chad Lewis, of course, is great. Now,
Mhm.
I wanted to mention. Okay, there's a shaman thing, right? Let me see if I can. The shaman's technique, training in personal paranormal encounters with Chris McBrien. Now, he was there last year.
Right.
Yes.
And
And-
I think there was some kind of, we were in the vendor room last year. I think there was some
Mhm.
kind of hubbub because like something paranormal happened during his shaman demonstration. Do you guys remember that at all?
Oh my
I
gosh.
do, yeah. Chris is an interesting critter. He comes from Scottish Pictish heritage, and his family has long practiced psychic, abilities and also shamanism in a Pictish tradition. So he's been around the world studying this stuff, and today he is actually a psychic medium shaman and helps a lot of people. We're good friends. Chris works here in Galena. We go out. We hit the sushi place pretty regularly. But here's a funny fact about Chris is. You go on to, say, TripAdvisor and look up a psychic, and generally you get about 50-50 in the review categories. People go, oh, they nailed it, or they weren't even close. Chris has almost entirely 5-star reviews. It's pretty uncanny. Yeah, he's the real deal, and he's helped people locate lost pets. He's helped people deal with the loss of loved ones. He works very much almost like a counselor with psychic ability, and it's really been neat to watch him go. His performances last year were not only tinged with activity, they were super popular, and so. I think this year we're looking forward to yet another dynamic presentation from Chris, and again, I can't wait to see what he does.
But do you remember what happened last year?
No, I don't.
No.
No one told me. I knew
Oh,
they said something happened, but no one
it, so
disclosed.
my sister was in it,
Mhm.
and
Uh-huh.
she's like texting me. She's like, "Is there a bird in the atrium or whatever?" And so in the
Oh,
DeSoto House Hotel, you have this main area, kind of it's a like an internal courtyard kind of thing,
right.
an atrium with a very high ceiling, and then you can see each kind of level, the mezzanines that go into where the conference rooms are, where the presentations happen, and then up above those are the rooms where people are staying and the actual hotel rooms. But during his presentation, and so it was raining like a banshee. Remember, there was an actual alert
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
that went off on everybody's phones or whatever,
The
saying
alarm.
tornado warning.
Right.
Everybody go downstairs. That was okay because the bar was downstairs.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But there was a
survived.
tornado warning last year, like right, head for shelter or whatever, right before his event. And so everybody was already a little bit on edge. And then, or maybe they were charged. I would say, emotionally, psychically, however you want to call it,
Adrenaline.
charged from that experience. And it's raining like nuts. And he's going, and I wasn't even in his thing, but my sister was saying he was doing something where he was like calling birds or trying to represent a bird or an avatar of it. It was something where, he was calling up the nature of it and birds specifically. And then some birds got into the atrium, like right in the moment he was doing
Yep,
it.
I
And
remember
then
that.
they started making noises and we heard it in the event room. And I'm like, oh man, a bird was trying to escape the rain or whatever. It's somebody's going to have to, whose ever job that is sucks. But they all heard it because it was such a synchronicity that happened at the exact moment he talks about it. Then like the car happens.
Yeah. It
And
was
it
like,
was like-
I do remember. It was a
It was-
crow of some kind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then it's like he set it up. It's like he set up. He's like, release the crows or whatever he did.
Exactly. I do remember.
So, but but Chris McBride, so that should be a lot of fun. And and my sister's hard to impress. And she's like, I don't know. He called the crows, man.
There they were.
And so that was great. And then, and also one of our favorites from Haunted America and from Alton, Illinois. And he is one of the original gangsters of haunted conventions,
Oh yeah.
of writing. And so Troy Taylor is going to be there. And Troy's always a delight. He's I mean, obviously a gifted storyteller and writer, who, if you guys have watched any paranormal shows, he's showed up at some time to tell a story, on almost all of them.
Yeah.
And so Troy, did he mention what he's going to be talking about this year?
He's actually going to be talking about Lizzie Borden. He wanted to do his Lizzie Borden thing, which is interesting that he chose that. I don't know if he knows this, but I have a little link to Lizzie Borden. So this is going to be really a lot of fun.
What? You have a link? Okay. All right. All
I
right.
have
Link to
a
Lizzie.
link.
I got to hear about this.
Okay, so a few Christmases ago, my sister's been doing genealogy, and it's been a hobby of hers for a while. And she's really gotten quite good at finding all of these relatives. And so a couple of Christmases ago, she called me all excited right before Christmas, and she said, "Oh, you're never going to guess who we're related to." And I'm like, "Who? What do you think? That some king from thousands of years ago? What?" And she's like, "We share a great, 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 how many ever greats grandfather with Lizzie Borden. We're related to Lizzie Borden." And of course, that made sense because my sister has a temper just like I imagine Lizzie Borden's, and you wouldn't want her around an axe. And
Right. Scare the hell out of your parents.
Right. I'm much, much, much more like her very calm and kind sister. So, yeah. So,
Just to make sure, though, I've doled up all the axes in the house.
yeah, there you go.
Good plan.
So, yeah.
Good plan.
So we are related. And so I'm excited to hear what Troy knows. And he said that this is quite a presentation with a lot of information that not everybody knows. So I think we do sell Troy's Lizzie Borden book in our shop, and it's one of our most popular books. They're intrigued by the story of Lizzie Borden. And so I'm super excited to go to this and to let Troy know that, yeah, I'm a distant relative.
Excellent. Excellent. Right. You should demand some royalties.
I know.
You're like,
I
hey,
know.
I inherited some copyright here, Troy.
That's right.
There you go.
Oh, and then, Kathy from Rockford Haunting, she's always a delight. She's really nice. Legends, myths, and mayhem
Really
along the
cool.
Rock River. And a lot of my in-laws are from Rockford or whatever. So and they're kind of, they're already kind of zombies. But the,
And Ted actually is from Rockford, too.
I grew up in Rockford, and I've spent many a day along the Rock River going down through Oregon and Sterling and Byron, all those little cute, cool towns. But there's kind of a dark history that she's cataloged in her new book. I am so excited to hear what Kathy has to say. It's going to be a really cool presentation.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to that because next time I see the in-laws, I want to have something gross and scary to say about Rockford. So that's fun. Then there's the Dark Side of Fairy Tales is right after lunch on Saturday, and so that sounds like it's something new, a little bit. It sounds there's a whole bunch of events and speakers that everybody's going to want to see, and there's only one at a time, so you're not going to miss anything. You can spend all day going between the vendors, buy some cool stuff, get your crystals, get your books, whatever you like, and then come on up and listen to some haunted stories and explore these kind of things with people who spend their life thinking about this all the time. So I know that some of the events are sold out. Some of the things are already. So if anybody is on the fence about Haunted Galena Convention, they're like, I don't know, what is still available to them that, it's like, hey, what's still open at this time where they can jump on, still get to be a part of it. If it's not one of the sold out ones, they can join things that will be sold out shortly if they don't get off their rears.
So we have some really fun after hours activities. One of the things that's always really popular is Ted and I are going to be doing a Haunted Galena Ghost Walk. Now, last year we did our regular downtown Haunted Galena Ghost Walk, but this year we are debuting our Haunted East Side tour. And that tour has its roots in the first tour that Ted developed. And so for many people, well, all the people, it's going to be kind of a brand new tour. So we're really excited to debut that, and we're going to do that together. And they're going to get to see a little part of Galena that isn't all around Main Street. So that'll be a really fun tour to see a little bit more of Galena, but still within walking distance of the DeSoto House Hotel. We're also, I lost my train of thought.
Well, the other thing to bear in mind too, Mike, is that your general admission ticket will get you into the door. It covers our welcoming mixer, including the open mic, and also a discussion panel initially on Friday night. It includes all the speakers then on Saturday and access into the vendor rooms, and so you get a lot for just coming on a general admission. But for the after hours events that are extra, the first big ones that are the investigations. This year we're investigating the DeSoto House and the Galena Cellars Winery, but unfortunately those are at this point sold out. As you can imagine, they're very popular and go pretty quickly. So what's still available, number one, we mentioned it earlier, you can spend an hour and a half with Chad Lewis perfecting your vampire protection kit, and that's going to be a fun one to get into. Another thing we're doing is with a partner across the street who runs a place called the Scent Workshop. She develops scents, perfumes, candles, and you actually have a wall of different scents to choose from and craft your own specialty candle. We have an after hours event where you'll go in and do that, along with adding crystals and some herbal remedies to create an intention candle, which if you're all into Wiccan and or alternative beliefs is a way of launching an intent. And it's really going to be a neat thing. That'll be an extra, and that's still available. We just announced that actually yesterday, and that's going to
so that's like a build your own magic spell kind of thing.
It's building your own intention candle, and so we're going to have crystals there for all of you out there that are use crystals and have found them helpful. We're going to have crystals for healing, for courage, for protection, for bringing self-love, for sleep, there's going to be
all of those.
There you go. You could actually put them all in one candle. And it's a really fun activity. It'll be about an hour and a half. And you'll get to take your candle home. Yep. But what's really, and if you do a protection one, you could light it in the DeSoto house if you're worried about their hauntings. That would help you.
Keeps crows and vampires away.
There you go. But the great thing about Scent Workshop is it's right across the street from the DeSoto, and you can bring your own beverages. She'll have ice and glasses, and if you want to bring wine or beer or whatever to have with you, or orange juice, whatever, you can have that as you build your own candle. Have a nice little relaxing hour and a half, and build a crystal candle for yourself.
It's really neat because you can, it'll be your scent, your intention, everything. It'll be a special workshop.
That's cool. I know because a lot of people go to these things. They buy those candles and things. And here's a chance to to make your own.
Make your own, exactly.
And so if people want to stay at the DeSoto house, are there still any rooms available if they actually want to stay on site?
Here's where you want to act fairly quickly.
Right, because they are, until March 1st, they have all of the rooms blocked off for the Haunted Galena Conference. There are probably 15 rooms left, or maybe a few more. Mm-hmm. And they have a special rate for everyone. After March 1st, you could still get the special rate if there were rooms left. I don't think there will be, but they're opening, that we won't have the block anymore after March 1st. They'll open it up to the public. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't come to the conference. There are many, many other hotels, bed and breakfasts, and Airbnbs very close to the DeSoto House Hotel. So if you were unable to get a room, don't let that discourage you. We can help you find a place too.
And there is still availability. The nice thing with the DeSoto, it's right in the heart of downtown Galena, and there's parking included with your room, and that is really a great gift.
And 2 restaurants
Galena.
On site.
Yeah,
which is nice.
You don't even have to leave. You can stay there. And if you do want to explore Main Street, you're right on it. It really is. It's a great place to stay, and it's one of our haunted attractions here as well.
So you never know what you're going to find. You might end up having your own experience there. So But that's just an idea. So everybody, if you are interested, make sure to act fast and check out number one, the DeSoto, because you get the price. But if you can't make that and you decide at the last minute to come, there's still plenty of places to stay in Galena. Obviously, it's a tourist town, though they can't fit 1.5 million people in the DeSoto house.
The DeSoto House Hotel, right?
So they got to stay somewhere, and there's plenty of places and plenty of places to go.
Lots of lodging, and then
Yes.
but it's fun being there.
We also have, again, the after hours activity with Chris McBrien. He's doing a special after hours activities, a psychic workshop above and beyond his presentation. A lot of people enjoyed his psychic workshop last year. I think that everybody would really enjoy that. And then the other new thing that we're really excited about is we're doing a tour of Greenwood Cemetery. That will be Sunday morning after checkout of the hotel. And we're going to take people to one of our cemeteries that has a lot of history and talk about the history, talk about the graves and
some of the more famous denizens buried there. But Greenwood was built in the age of beautiful death, so there's a lot of grand monuments, and the cemetery is very park-like with winding roads and little hills and stuff. It's really pretty, but it's also a little creepy, and we'll talk about burial customs, as well as the history of some of the people that are buried there, and tombstone iconography. It'll all be encapsulated in that tour. It'll be great. And the proceeds from that are donated to the auxiliary for the cemetery that helps maintain and preserve it.
And some of the ghosts that we talk about are buried there. So
that's right.
Excellent. Well, that's also, yet they have to donate to the auxiliary or whatever, so then the ghosts don't come at you while you're there. But that
well, you can bring your protection candle.
That sounds like a great opportunity for people who love to take pictures when they're out and about, when they go to these kind of things. And sometimes they want to people love graveyard photos, cemetery photos, and that sounds like the perfect place to do it. All right. Well, I'm super excited about the Haunted Galena Convention 2023. It is March 31st and April 1st. That's Friday, Saturday night, going on to Sunday morning. DeSoto House in Galena, Illinois. I'll be hosting the Ghost Story open mic at 8 p.m. going on to when we're done with Ghost Stories. And I will have a little gift for every person that decides to come there and tell a story for us and share. No, I got to believe your story, though. So it's a gift for everybody. So you can't just be like, oh, when I was a kid, ooh, there was a monster under my bed. There was a monster under my bed too, pal.
Yeah. There still is.
Okay. So, but anyway, so make sure you guys come to that. It's also, you can come before you go to the after hours events, or you can come after you get, from things and after dinner and the whole kind of deal. So Ted, Robin, I want to thank you very much for joining us, telling us all about that. People can find more about this. What's the website again?
hauntedgalena.com.
Okay, so make sure, write this down at the end here, and we'll see you next time, guys, for our next American Ghost Walks interview. But we're happy that Ted and Robin from Haunted Galena Tour Company join us today. We'll see you March 31st, April 1st, 2023 at the DeSoto House in Galena.
We can't wait.